Hey guys, Joe here, and it's been a little while since I made a video and I wanted to explain why. What should have been a very easy thing turned out to be a bit of a pain in my ass, and I will explain what happened. This is my NZXT S340 case. You've seen it in a bunch of videos because I keep changing what's inside of it. For the last 2 months, which is actually a long time for me, I've been running this Asus Z77 Sabertooth motherboard. It's a good board, actually. It has plenty of USB 3.0s and lots of USB 2.0 outputs on the I/O, and it does support SLI and everything, so it was a good thing, but it's on socket 1155. For those of you that know your sockets, you know that that is a older socket that you can't even get any more new. So I went looking for a replacement processor. What I have in there currently is an i5 2500K. What I wanted was an i7. The best that this board can support is a 3770K, so I went looking, couldn't find one. I did send an email to a gentleman who had a 2600K, which is better than this one because it's 4-core, 8-thread hyper-threading processor, but he wouldn't come down on his price. What I found instead was an entire computer. Now, as you can see, I've already disassembled it and one of the feet popped off, so I'm going to have to find it. But this is a Corsair Redshift Spec 2, I think it's called. Long name, whatever. It's not a bad case. However, I don't like exposed power supplies. I prefer it when the power supply is in a basement, as such as my S340 here. So my plan was pretty simple. I wanted to take the motherboard, which is a ASRock 970 Performance Fatality. I think that's the name. I might have that all screwed up. I'll put it somewhere in here. And it came with an 8350 FX processor, which is an octa-core, 8-core processor. Came with 16 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR3 RAM, 2400 megahertz. However, there was an issue with that, and I'll get to that. That case, as well as a LG Blu-ray player, which is on the floor in front of me, and I don't feel like running to get it. All right, I'll go get it. Ha, see, Blu-ray player. I wasn't lying to you, Grandma. Blu-ray! So, I only really wanted the processor, and I just on a whim sent an email to the guy, actually a text, and said, hey, look, you're very far from me because it wound up being a 2-hour drive. Would you take less for it? Because I had originally offered him $150, which wouldn't be bad for the components. You go to Micro Center in my area and try to replace all this stuff. Just the processor's $110. But he said, sure, he'd take $120. So not a problem, because what I did was I traded in an Xbox One at GameStop because it's currently same cash as trade. So if you trade something in right now, you can take the cash instead of the trade. And I got $100 from that, and I traded in a couple of games that I had nothing into. So basically I had $65 into what I traded in. And I went and met this guy, and I spent $10 on fuel. So for basically $75, I got the processor, the board, the drive, the case, all that stuff, and I was on my way. I was very happy when I saw that it had Corsair Vengeance 2400 megahertz RAM in there, because then I knew I could overclock the snot out of it. Things started going bad as soon as I got home. If you've watched my channel, you'll know that I've had a lot of different configurations running on the same SSD. It had the same operating system on it. I never wiped it, reset it, format it, or anything. So it was running a copy of Windows 10 that was 2 years old and had like 7 other motherboards that it had been put into. So that led me into my first problem, because I was getting the blue screen of death. It was looking for a program that was associated with this motherboard. That screw did not come out of the motherboard, pardon me. And since I didn't have the motherboard in there anymore, I couldn't do anything about it. I should have reset the Windows before I did anything, but I didn't. I'm stupid. So I then decided to reset everything, but I accidentally erased my hard drive in doing so. It happens. But that led me into the first problem, because then I had to grab a hard drive out of a laptop that I've had laying around forever, and I had to use that operating system because it was the only one that I had with an operating system on it available but that was running a 32-bit version of Windows 10. So this system was only seeing 2.5 gigs of RAM, which was slowing it down considerably. You would think that would be the end of my troubles, but no. I used a clone software to clone that super slow 5400 RPM hard drive onto my SSD, but something went wrong in the cloning process, as usually happens, because then you wind up with a and that was kind of stupid. So I killed 40 gigs of my SSD. Don't know why, can't access it. It says my SSD is 78 gigabytes now, so that's good. Finally, I just decided to wipe everything, grabbed a USB drive that my father had that had the ISO files for Windows 10 64-bit, installed it, recognized it, used my Microsoft account, so I was able to reclaim my product key, and now I'm back to functioning. However, while it was seeing 16 gigs of RAM, it was only allowing me to access 8. So my first thought was one of these RAM slots were bad. So I went through and I switched them from A1, B1 to A2, B2, which is actually where it is for dual channel, and it still didn't make a difference. So then I took one stick out and started testing each slot. Well, this DIMM doesn't work. It's bad. So that was lucky, I guess. And I have a big feeling this is the reason why the guy got rid of the computer. So I replaced this one with this one. As you can see, it's also a stick of Corsair Vengeance. Now, I'd like to change the heat spreader, but I can't, unfortunately. When you try to remove a heat spreader that isn't screwed on, you usually wind up ripping off the RAM chips. But the downside is this RAM chip is only 1600 megahertz, so I can't clock over 1600 on it right now. But I do have 16 gigs running in dual channel now, which is the positive thing. Doesn't have as much I/O. It does have a total of 8 USB ports in the back, 4 of which are USB 3. Obviously, I have 2 USB 3.0 headers up front, which is plenty. So let's go over the rest of the system before I finish up this video. What I have in here, obviously, is the 8350. I have it clocked at 4.8 gigahertz right now. That seems to be where it's most happy. It's an older processor, but it actually is holding its own, especially when it's overclocked. At 4.8 gigahertz, it's equivalent to a entry-level 4770K that's not super overclocked. And it actually is right neck and neck with the 6700K. Again, the 6700K isn't overclocked. But that's good for me because it basically means that I'm getting about a 25% increase in performance over the 2500K that I have in here, which is good for me because when I do video editing, it'll go much faster now, especially since I have all the extra cores. For the video cards, I'm running dual GTX 960 super clocks. Now, I know that's kind of a weird setup to be running. However, I got a great deal on the cards, and that made it worth it for me. Plus, the performance is pretty darn good when you SLI a couple of cards. Both of these cards and the SLI bridge were $130. It is hard to beat the performance I'm getting out of these two cards for 130 bucks, especially now with all those cryptocurrency miners and all the other idiots out there that think a 980 Ti is worth $400. It's not. So I'm happy with what I have. It runs all my games. No problemo. For a power supply, I'm just using a Corsair 750 watt 80 plus bronze semi-modular power supply. Luckily the cables are all black, so there's no ketchup and mustard in there. And I have it overloaded with fans. I did that on purpose. I have 2 fans in front of the radiator that pull air in. Those were the ones that came with the Kraken. And then I have a couple of fans here as well as one up there. So I have really good airflow through this case. It runs really cool. Even with the overclock, I'm getting very reasonable temperatures out of this setup. And I'm very happy with it. So overall, I'd say that I think personally, I did really well because the total cost of everything that I have in here is $130 for the graphics cards, basically $75 for the processor, motherboard, and RAM since I traded in stuff that I had $75 into. So you're talking about $205. And a Craigslist find on the Kraken X61 at $50, and it was mint in the box used for like a week. So those major components all put together come to a grand total of $255. You add in a power supply, which was $45 on sale, so you're at about $300. The case, I've had it forever. I'm not going to really count it in here. However, they do still sell this case for $60, I believe, at Micro Center. You can probably get it cheaper online. So basically, I have a $300 computer that will run all my games, has plenty of power for processing video, it does have decent storage. I forgot to mention that. It does have two 1 terabyte Western Digital Blacks as well as the SSD. And it does everything I want it to do. I see these guys that do $700, $800, $900, $1,500 builds, and I wish I could spend that kind of money, but I'm not that kind of channel. I'm not that kind of guy. I prefer to find the best possible deals I can on previously owned products. I will tell you to keep your eyes open because I do intend to upgrade this one. A gentleman actually emailed me this morning about the 2600K that I was trying to get before I got all of this. If that happens, I'll do another build with this, and I'll build it in a cheapo case that I'm going to custom paint, which will be another video. So yeah, that's about it. I really thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate all the subscribers that have come along so far. I think we're at about 390. It is the end of July. Yes, end of July. I don't get out much. And going forward, hopefully I'll pick up more and more. So let's get to 500 before the end of the year. I'd like to get to 1,000, but that requires more people watching, so tell your friends. That's about it. Thank you very much. Check out the other channel as more videos get put up there as well. This video will be put on both channels for now, but in the future, I'm going to be doing just tech videos for that channel, and all the rest of the stuff will be on this channel. So yeah, awesome. Go ahead and click on my face, which should be somewhere inside the case here if you haven't subscribed yet. Click up here if you'd like to become a Patreon. It would allow me to buy equipment and products and things like that to review, as well as potentially give away once I start having excess systems. And click over here if you'd like to see something else. I'm sure I'll have another video up here for you. And, as always, I'll talk to you later.